looking at the cupboard lying in front of him. No matter how he thought, there were some things that felt lacking. That's why he was here, to shine light the success of the protagonists. Someone had to stay behind the curtain. Janica just chuckled when Ed found her. He then recalled when he was with Lortel. He asked why Janica was having a tantrum. Lortel said that she seemed to know the reason. She once happened to look into Janica's room. What she saw, there was a lot of sincere thanks, but, on her spacious desk, there was not even room to fully open a book. The quotes stuck on the wall weighed on her shoulders like a stone. The solution was actually very easy. Just remove all the quotes from the wall and clean the table full of gifts piled up. But Janica's misery was that she was like a fairy tale character who was impossible to do such a thing. Feeling compelled to repay every kindness and sincerity with all her efforts, it was certainly a reckless act. There was no need to explain how stupid her thoughts were. The philosopher dived into that darkness. Then Janica's tantrum could not be prevented. But Ed was confused. Why did it happen 1 month earlier than he expected? At the joint combat training, the original, Taylor was supposed to be the protagonist of this scenario, but with Lucy defeating Taylor in one attack. All the students turned into Janica fans. The reason Taylor could be defeated in one attack was because Lucy made a deal with Marilda. The opportunity to make a contract with Marilda arose because she often went to the North Forest, and she often went there because it was the perfect place for her to take a nap. The place to sleep was made by a character who was supposed to leave the stage at the beginning of Act 1. After being discovered by Ed, Janica just said she felt she knew why Lucy liked to nap here. It was very comfortable. She just didn't expect Ed to find it this easily. She thought the others had forgotten about her amidst all the chaos. It was a bit painful for her, after walking so proudly on the big stage, then forgotten after the problem was over. She thought they would immediately look for her whereabouts after seeing her disappear. But Ed said that she was hiding because she didn't want to be found. Janica didn't dodge. She didn't expect to be found this quickly. Even though she wanted to hide a little longer before going out, Ed then asked why. Janica replied she wanted to almost ugly cry now. Ed could only be silent hearing that. He then recalled the plea made by Marilda at that time. It seemed like a plea to save Janica from this incident, but he felt that it was impossible, because only he knew the future. Maybe what she meant was when everyone burdened Janica with attention, she probably thought that someone who kept her distance without being interested in Janica could be someone she could rely on. But in the end, Janica's attempt failed. She tried to make a contract with the new high elemental spirit, but she rushed to do the summon ritual, then ended up being devoured by the dark spirit, and destroyed the faculty building in the process, studying and practicing magic until midnight, smiling for the sake of family, friends, and professors who supported her. But when she tried so hard to meet everyone's expectations, she must have had a really hard time in private, since that process itself was beautiful. Ironically, it made her failures also beautiful. Ed wasn't sure if this could comfort her. He then called out to her and said, "You've worked very hard." The parade of protagonists proudly crossed the stage above, amidst the applause and amazement. Meanwhile, backstage was quiet and dark. The end of Villain Act 1 was covered by the highlighted protagonists. Janica could only shed her tears after getting consolation from Ed. The spirits then suddenly floated to light up the room beautifully. Ed was amazed when he saw it. He had never witnessed a scene like this before. Of all the times he watched Act 1, only now he felt he had finally reached the end point. His magic spirit then rose to level 10, and some spirits began to have an interest in him, including the high wind spirit Marilda. Before he knew it, it had been 10 days since Janica's disciplinary committee finished. She confessed all her wrongdoings, and stated she would accept any punishment. However, from the first trial, her professors and friends came to her defense. At the second trial, Fenia declared she would not prosecute for the attempted murder of royalty, and testified that Janica, controlled by the philosopher, had no ill intent. Lortel acted to address the injuries and damages. The Elk Merchant Association fully funded the repairs without charging, of course. They made additional provisions to have the budget for the academic supplies they distributed to the school, and the final result of the trial was, Janica's privileges as a top-ranking student were revoked. All honor awards were returned. She was banned from entering Ophilus from the next semester. She was also kept under house arrest for 10 days and suspended for 20 days. But in exchange, she was not expelled from the academy. The professors and friends who supported her cheered happily when they heard the news. It was like a heart-wrenching youth drama. The friends were grateful that it was over, but they looked at Janica, who still looked gloomy. They felt that Janica must be very stressed at this time. Then, it was their turn to act. They then served Janica with drinks and ate sweet food to comfort her. They also whispered to never mention the Glasgow incident, and don't show unnecessary worry. Moreover, don't ask how she feels. It's better to talk about light and ordinary topics. They then agreed on that and prepared to encourage Janica. But Janica suddenly said, liking and loving someone, why do these two feelings feel so different? They were surprised when Janica suddenly talked about it. Janica then stammered, saying that it was about her friend. Blushing, she said, her friend was dreaming. After arranging a flower arrangement for someone, she was suddenly called from behind by someone. The person looked like Ed, who looked like a prince with his white horse. She then placed the flower arrangement on Ed's head and said that she made this for him, and they then had fun together. Janica said that her friend kept dreaming like that, but they immediately knew the truth behind Janica's clumsy lie. Because she couldn't even see anyone during the 10 days of house arrest, but they pretended not to know and asked, then what did her friend say again? Janica said, she sat in the room and daydreamed. Suddenly that person's face always appeared in her mind. Hearing that, one of her friends named Anise immediately ran away on the pretext that she had promised to help the assistant professor. Now only Clara is left. In order not to hurt Janica's sensitive heart, she must have this conversation. Slowly and carefully, one mistake will spread to the whole school, because this is the love story of Janica Faylover. She then called Janica and said, maybe you are thinking too much about it. Liking or hating someone is more complex than she thinks. Janica then asked, is it? Clara continued, isn't it better to just be honest with your feelings now? Isn't it better for you or for that person? Janica felt that Clara had a point. Clara then suggested to be careful in talking about this sensitive issue in the future. It could not be good for her reputation, or her friend, or that person. Janica finally realized that. Clara was relieved because she managed to prevent rumors. Janica then thanked her for her advice. She said she would go back to the Office Hall first to report on her suspension, while Clara just said she would sit here longer. She needed to think about something. She then waved her hand towards Janica as a form of farewell. Clara could finally be relieved after successfully encouraging Janica and preventing Janica from becoming more depressed. Back to Ed. He had been saving money endlessly, but thanks to Phinia, his fees for the next semester were waived. He then bought some equipment with the gold coins he had now. He was then surprised when he saw Janica in front of him. He had been avoiding her, but now that Act 1 starring Janica was over, Ed then took the initiative to greet her. He felt that maybe it didn't matter if he greeted her first. While Janica herself looked surprised when Ed suddenly greeted her, she then felt panicked and embarrassed to answer back his greeting. But she then didn't know what else to say. She then remembered Clara's words. She had to be honest with her feelings. Until finally she chose to run away on the pretext that she had a need in the Office Hall. It was too hard for Janica, and Ed Roth Taylor, who made the kind Janica be truthful, was kinda amazing in a way. But Ed then decided not to think about it too much, because he was going to be very busy too, looking at the spacious land in front of him. It was time to build the cabin he planned. On the first day, it started with selecting a shady, spacious, and inconspicuous location, then started with leveling the land. On the third day, he started collecting wood. This work was made easy thanks to his high wind blade proficiency. On the sixth day, he temporarily paused the construction of the cabin because the results of the end of semester exam had come out. His score was quite high in theory and his practical score was much higher than the average new student. But he was confused because Janica was still ignoring him. Janica's friends, Clara and Anise, signaled him to stay away. Even though he had no intention of approaching, on day 18, the construction of his cabin was almost complete. He wondered if there was anyone else who honed the wind blade skill so expertly like him. On day 20, the vacation began. He could dedicate all his time to the construction of his cabin. He also found Lucy, who was caught in the trap he set earlier, in a state of deep sleep. He felt it was time to stop using jerky as bait. On the 27th day, Maya visited. She also shared some herbs and mushrooms with him. When she asked about what happened to Janica, he replied that he seemed to have made Janica hate him, and Maya looked confused when she heard his answer. On the 30th day, one side of his wooden wall collapsed. He realized then that installing the joints properly wasn't enough to keep it up. He was upset about it, and when he went to school, he ran into Janica and her friends again near the dorm bakery. Janica, as usual, ran away as soon as their eyes met, and her friends were now looking at him with hatred. On the 37th day, Zix came to help. He then said that Taylor was a better person than he thought. As Ed had said before, Ed was happy that things were going according to his original story. Zix then asked if they were going to hammer this whole side too. Ed said no. He told him to leave that part alone. It was a place for sloppy smoke. And on the 45th day, Ed then walked to the cabin he had worked so hard to build. He then sat down to enjoy the fruits of his labor. Neither the floor nor the walls had been polished, and there was not a single piece of furniture. This was just a cabin made of rough wood, but it has this outer wall and roof. No insects can enter if the door is closed. Ed then stretched his neck while smiling slightly. A system notification then appeared. His crafting proficiency increased after successfully crafting a wooden cabin with a difficulty level of 4 stars, and Ed now finally has his own home. Outside the cabin, Janica was seen hiding behind a tree. She was currently peeking at Ed with a feeling of embarrassment.
So, friends, this chapter comes to an end. What will happen next? We'll uncover it in the next chapter. Don't forget to rate this chapter out of 10 in the comments. We'll see you in the next video. Until then, take care and goodbye. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel.